Bandidos, if you're looking for a good build for this new exotic LMG called the Iron Lung, then I got your back. Let's do it. So Bandidos, I was using this build to complete this manhunt target, and I know a lot of you have been asking for this build, and I promised I'd share it, so here we go. Before we break down the build, let's talk about this exotic real fast. So it's got a really high base weapon damage, which is nice. It's got a decent RPM on the faster side, but it's kind of got a smaller mag at 85 rounds. Remember, LMGs in this game can go up to 250, but what's really cool about it is it's got damage to targets out of cover and damage to armor. That's what's neat about LMGs, is you can have both. It's got 10% crit damage mod, another 10% crit damage mod. That's nice. And then plus 35 rounds, which is sort of okay. I have really nice accuracy and stability on this with the 3.1 second reload. So you know, without this build, I stripped out the build so you can see the difference here. Normally it has a 5.1 second reload. That is a nasty reload and something that you're gonna wanna avoid. It is noticeable when you're playing with this LMG. You're gonna be reloading for 5 seconds every 85 rounds on a weapon that's shooting at 800 RPMs. That means you're definitely gonna be spending more time reloading than you are actually shooting this weapon. Something has to be done about that. And with this build, that's the business we're taking care of. And what makes this gun extremely special is the talent. It's called Ardent. So shooting heats up the weapon, filling up the heat meter. The meter is equivalent to 50% of the weapon's standard magazine size. So when the meter is full, rounds shot by the weapon ignite enemies. That fire is amazing. You can pop enemies out of cover with it. You can basically crowd control them with it and keep them from shooting at you while you're reloading. Super handy, and it actually makes you feel quite powerful, that fire, combined with the DPS that this weapon is putting out. And it's got a decent damage drop off with a nice gentle slope, making it a pretty good weapon for Legendary as well. So I'm gonna give it to you straight. If you don't handle the reload, you're not gonna enjoy this weapon. There's more than one way to do it. When I first got this LMG, I was torn between two builds. I already put out the other build, and you can check that one out here. I'll put a link down below. But this is the other build that I really enjoyed. Again, I was going back and forth, because they both handled the reload situation and both had me feeling pretty darn powerful.
Entering dog zone.
I'm running the Ninja Bike backpack, so that's where we're gonna start, and it's a perfect backpack for this weapon. And let me explain why. So we have the 3 cores, which is nice, and then I got crit chance here, and then resourceful. Basically what resourceful does is unlocks an additional brand set attribute or its bonus talent. When you're looking to add more damage to your build, it's very rare that the Ninja Bike Messenger is going to be your answer. But when you're looking to add a utility such as weapon handling, then the Ninja Bike Messenger is absolutely a great answer. By running this backpack, we're getting our damage and unlocking amazing amounts of weapon handling with the fewest amount of pieces. Let's get into it. Umbra gives us crit chance and 30% reload speed. What's the problem we're trying to handle? Reload speed. That's right. From the shadows into the light. Yeah, this is like Bible of a text here. I get that. So I'm just gonna break it down for you real quick. Basically, you need to get in cover to build stacks just for 5 seconds. And then when you're out of cover, you're gonna have 15% reload speed bonus and 50% crit hit damage bonus. And this gear set is also giving you heals equivalent to 8% armor regen per second. But you have to be in cover to get the heals. But you also have to be in cover to build up your damage stacks from time to time anyways. So it's a really nice gear set because you're playing that way anyways. When this gear set first came out, I was kind of worried it sounded tedious, but in fact, it actually plays out quite natural because I usually pop in cover to reload anyways. Anyways, we got weapon damage and crits on the mask. I feel like the chest is best in slot for the Umber build. And that's because it's doubling the offensive bonuses. So we're gonna get 30% RPM as well as 100% crit hit damage now. So if we just look at our stats here, so I'm at 55% crit chance, that's actually 200% crit damage because of the chest piece. Super dope. And then the holster is weapon damage and crit damage. Now I'm only running 3 pieces, and remember the Ninja Bike backpack is unlocking the 4th piece bonus. That's how that's working. Okay, here's where things get really interesting. So I'm running the contractor's gloves. Naturally, it's an LMG, so we get the LMG damage, damage to armor, and crit hit damage, of course, with the weapon damage attribute. But the Ninja Bike backpack is unlocking an additional 10% weapon handling. That's perfect because we need both those attributes, LMG damage and the handling, and of course, the damage to armor perfect attribute down below. So there's 10% weapon handling. Weapon handling includes accuracy, stability, weapon swap speed, and of course, reload speed. So that's 10% more reload speed on top of the 30% reload speed that Umbra's giving us. So that's a total of 40% reload speed. We're not done. I'm running one piece of hot shots. That's right, might look strange to you, but we're ignoring the 30% marksman rifle damage, and there's no better way to get 30% weapon handling that doesn't have any conditions to it. So there's braced for your chest piece, but that requires you to play from cover. To be frank, this is mostly a play from cover build anyways, but this gives you freedom to reload still at lightning speeds while you're in transition from cover to cover without having to do a cover to cover move, or when you're just playing out on the run. Weapon damage and crit hit chance on this. So again, that's an additional 30% reload speed on top of the 40%. We are now at 70% reload speed bonus. I'm not done. We're running Gunner so that we can get some 10% armor on kill. Now, normally I don't like to run Gunner on exotic LMGs because one of Gunner's big advantage is giving you a bigger pouch, but we don't get to take advantage of that. So basically, Gunner is helping with the ammo situation, which is actually a situation because Umbra is increasing our RPMs by 30%, and this weapon has a base 800 RPM. So yeah, you're spitting out lots of ammo. So Gunner is going to help with that a little bit, and it's going to give us 10% armor on kill. Now we have heals. That's what I love about Umbra. So don't try to compare Umbra directly with something like Striker, because Striker is your pure DPS build. This isn't. This is a DPS hybrid. Heartbreaker is also a hybrid. That's a tank DPS hybrid. This one isn't. This one has a healing element in the form of regen. My point is, the 10% armor on kill is nice, but it's not a must-have. But the other reason why I'm running Gunner is because it gives me 10% more weapon handling when I'm standing still. So when we were playing and shooting from cover and we're reloading, that's another 10% reload buff. So at total, we're at 80% reload speed. Super cool, right? Okay, for your secondary weapons, let's go with whatever. I'm not really using any of them. And then I'm using the decoy. That helps you put out more shots without receiving much damage. And then I'm using the Banshee in case I get flanked hard. You can't run a shield with LMGs, of course, and I don't necessarily need the repair skills. However, that is a decent route to go with. If you're looking for more weapon handling, you could also go with the Booster Hive, which includes weapon handling in its buffs. However, something to be aware of, even if you're playing solo, the NPC allies can actually absorb your booster, which is kind of annoying. And because you're not a skill build, even if you're running in a group, it's kind of annoying when your teammates are sucking in your booster because you're the one that actually needs the boost to your weapon handling, and you don't really have enough hive drones to actually share. That's why it's not my favorite skill to handle handling, but it is actually an option. Just be aware of those conditions. So this helped me breeze through the manhunt. It works great for heroic content and missions, but when it comes to legendary, the jury is out.
Hostile broadcast picked up.
And there's nothing wrong with the 80% weapon handling, and the exotic is amazing, but it's really the Umbra gear set and the LMG combo that might not always work depending on the legendary content you're taking on. I ran a match made to test out this particular exotic LMG with Umbra and ended up with the Zoo, which is always a pain in the butt in the first place, right? Because the angles in there are a pain in the butt and the cover is really awkward, so they always seem to have a line of sight on you. When it comes to this set working, it's not really the damage part where I have an issue. You get in cover, you can build those offensive stacks, but using your stacks is a little bit difficult because Umbra requires you to get in and out of cover, in and out of cover. But because of how these checkpoints are designed, especially at the Zoo, I gotta say, that you pop out of cover and you take the blunt force of the entire checkpoint and they just clear your armor really fast. Now I'm running a DPS hybrid, so that's not really a problem in theory because you're like, well, I'll just heal up real quick. And we have 8% armor regen per second on Umbra by default, and that's fast and that's strong. But in legendary like the Zoo, it didn't feel fast or strong enough. And that's because every time I'd pop out, they'd basically wipe all my armor. I'm not running much armor. I don't really need to because I have heals. I'd rather have the damage and just lean on my heals, but the heals weren't fast enough. And so thank God I had Gunner, so I was getting my kills and getting 10% armor on kill to help a little bit. And I was doing a really good job killing, I gotta say, probably taking most of the kills for the team. But with a weapon and a build where you should be the one suppressing, I found I was being suppressed suppressed by the enemy more than I was suppressing them. Again, it's not necessarily Umbra and it's not the LMG. Each of those on their own are great, but it's the combination. That's because LMGs require you to spend a lot of time out of cover. They got larger mags in assault rifles. That means you're going to be shooting longer. Thank goodness we got a high RPM so we can zip through that mag real quickly, and I got a fast reload, putting us back on the offense. But losing so much health, I felt like I was being suppressed a lot because I was waiting for my armor to come back. Part of this is the conflict of my playstyle. I'm pretty aggressive and I find myself being the tip of spear a lot, and I don't think that's really the best place to play with LMGs in the Division 2. I don't know, what are your thoughts here? And here's the conflict that I've always found way before this video. Even when you tack it back a little bit and you play more of that support role and you just laying it down with your big old mag, and even if you're in the back, all of the NPCs turn their attention to you. So if you're doing really well, all of a sudden they're gonna turn to you and lay it down thick instead of doing the suppression. Now you're the one being suppressed. Partly that has something to do with how the devs buff the enemies as you increase the size of your team. The NPCs get more aggressive. So even though you're in the back and should be shielded by 2 players or 3 players in front of you, taking that aggro away from you, the enemies are so aggressive. If you do enough damage on them or if you put out enough shots, all of a sudden you're pulling aggro and they're difficult to suppress. So some of the issues I experienced, playing the zoo with this build can be circumvented with the right team composition. Like with skill builds, for example, that do a really good job of distracting the enemies. But I still think it comes down to the actual legendary stronghold, because cover options are going to be really important for builds like this, and missions like the zoo don't give you great options in many of those checkpoints. So Bandidos, why do you think some legendary builds excel at some strongholds but fail in others? Thank you for hanging out with me today. My name is TuxedoBandido, and this was another episode of The Division 2. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The Division 2. And if you like builds like this, check out the recommended build video I have here for you. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
Follow me.
I get it.